we're going to take a minute or two. No, we got it. We're going to go on with Cain and Abel because we're talking about these alienation things, and Cain and Abel just sort of really belongs as the next step to this. If evil and bad came into the world with Adam and Eve, where does death come from? And there we are with Cain and Abel. Let's look at 4. Who can read? Who wants to read? You want to? Sure. Where? Beginning of chapter 4.
Then Adam had sexual intercourse with Eve, his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to a son.
Well, wait. What?
She's got the Living Bible. She also got pictures.
I have pictures.
Ooh!
Not of that.
Okay, I just... Go on.
It's to explain it. That and gave birth to a son, Cain, meaning I have created. For as she said, with God's help, I have created a man. Her next child was his brother Abel. Abel became a shepherd, while Cain was a farmer. At harvest time, Cain brought the Lord a gift from his farm produce, and Abel brought the fatty cuts of meat from his best lambs and presented them to the Lord. And the Lord accepted Abel's offering, but not Cain's. This made Cain both dejected and very angry, and his face grew dark with fury. Why are you angry? The Lord asked. Why is your face so dark with rage? It can be bright with joy if you will do what you should. But if you refuse to obey, watch out. Sin is waiting to attack you, longing to destroy you, but you can conquer it. One day Cain suggested to his brother, let's go out into the fields. And while they were together there, Cain attacked and killed his brother. But afterwards the Lord asked Cain, where is your brother? Where is Abel? How should I know? Cain retorted. Am I supposed to keep track of him everywhere he goes? But the Lord said, your brother's blood calls to me from the ground. What have you done? You are hereby banished from this ground, which you have defiled with your brother's blood. No longer will it yield crops for you, even if you toil on it forever. From now on, you will be a fugitive and a tramp upon the earth, wandering from place to place. Cain replied to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear, for you have banished me from my farm and from you and made me a fugitive and a tramp, and everyone who sees me will try to kill me. The Lord replied, they won't kill you, for I will give 7 times your punishment to anyone who does. Then the Lord put an identifying mark on Cain as a warning not to kill him. So Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden.
Okay. This thing is packed with symbols. This thing is packed with symbols. Okay. What are the 2 brothers' occupations? Farmer and shepherd. Okay. What's the major occupation for the Yahwist's people? Shepherds. Okay. So the shepherd, and we'll see this, boy, we're going to see this symbol forever. Meat. They haven't been told they can eat meat yet. That won't happen until after Noah. But in this story, meat takes on a significance. Meat will show up in Noah too, and in Abraham. But eating meat was a rarity. You produced the animals. You milked them. You made cheese from them. You didn't eat them because that was your livelihood. You sheared them, you made wool. But eating them was a rarity. Festivals, feasts, you killed an animal. But the ordinary folk did not eat that much meat.
If you ate it, you destroyed your resources.
That's right. So that to eat meat was a great occurrence. They ate a lot of fish, by the way, for the Holy Land. Fish was, staple. But, okay, you have the two offerings. Who accepts the good offering? Yahweh. Yahweh accepts the good offering. Later on, the first fruits of the farm would be a very important offering. Very important. The first tenth of whatever you produced on the field was consecrated. You didn't eat that. You brought that to the temple.
We're talking about that on Sunday.
Huh?
We're going to talk about that on Sunday.
Oh, good. Okay. But the firstborn of the animals that you have later on will be an offering. Luckily, no longer will your own firstborn be an offering, because at the early stages, it too was an offering. But this whole idea of offerings begins to grow in Genesis. Okay. Cain kills his brother. Why does Cain kill his brother?
Jealousy.
Jealousy. Jealousy. Pure and simple jealousy. Jealousy led to fratricide and the first death in the Old Testament. That's where death enters. I love this quote. The man's name is Norman MacDonald. Man has been violent since his remote ape-like ancestors descended from the trees. Man being what he is, violence is forever. We deceive ourselves if we call murder inhuman. It is characteristic of man or of humans. It may be inhumane, but it is not inhuman. Just pick up your newspaper and turn on your television.
Yeah.
And forgive me if I say we have far too many guns. There are just too many guns.
Any what?
Guns.
Oh, yeah.
Weapons. We just have too many. So we have alienation growing. We have alienation now between the semi-nomads and the farmers, alienation in the family between brothers or sisters. Any questions about Cain and Abel?
What was Cain supposed to bring if his offering wasn't accepted?
If he was a farmer, what else could he bring?
Yeah.
I think that's the question.
The question is, okay, anybody remember Westerns? They don't make them anymore. But remember Westerns? What was the big fight in the Westerns?
The farmers.
Sheep
The
and the
farmer
cattle.
and the cattleman, right? farmer plowed up the pasture land to grow wheat or whatever, and the pasture land that the cattleman needed was being plowed. Go back millennia, and you have the fight between the farmer and the herdsman. It's the same fight. It's just on a different scale. The animals are smaller, but it's the same fight.
Yeah, but still the question is, why didn't the Lord accept Cain's?
Because the Lord is Yahweh, and Yahweh is a semi-nomad.
Okay.
Cain,
So
he
Cain
wasn't
wasn't-
going to be able to,
Give him anything he would accept.
being
No,
a farmer.
he was a farmer, and this is the religion of the semi-nomads. Who is the God of the farmer? El. Yahweh is not the God of the farmer. Yahweh is the God of the herdsman. And no matter what Cain did, he was never going to be good enough
Unless he raised sheep.
unless he raised sheep.
So the Yahweh was telling him, you made the wrong choice.
Yeah,
You decided to be a farmer instead of a sheep herder, and now you're cursed.
you're stuck with it. I know it, by our minds, this makes no sense. You know, I can't make it make sense. But
But it also doesn't make sense that the son that took all his inheritance went off and, spent it all, like
Yeah.
the prodigal son. That doesn't make sense either to us because, we think, we say it's unfair. This seems unfair too, but we have to know where
we're
it's
even going
coming
to see
from.
the root of that in Genesis.
Right, you gotta know where it's coming from.
Yeah, we even see the root of that in Genesis. I don't know why, other than the fact that Yahweh is the God of the semi-nomads, why Cain doesn't get a better deal. He just doesn't. If he lived, in the north, he'd be fine. But he lives in the south, and he's got problems.
And that's where it started.
Huh?
That's where it started, with the South having problems.
With the north.
Well, doesn't have to come from somewhere. I mean, if not this, there's another. There would have to be another story.
But it's enmity because you are taking the land I need to graze my sheep, and you're just growing wheat and barley. It's not vegetables, because that's his wife's problem. Okay? She's growing the vegetable garden, but he's growing wheat and grain. And that keeps Abel from having land on which to graze his sheep. When you are in Canaan, and you have to realize that even though we have been talking about Mesopotamia, we're not talking about Canaan. There isn't a lot of arable land. There isn't a lot of arable land, particularly in the south. So arable land where they can graze sheep is precious. Okay? Ain't fair. Nobody said why
Nope.
it was.
Never promised you a rose garden.
Okay. I got one more story. Oh, please look at your Bible. And the rest of this. Look at chapter 5. I'm not going to read them because heaven knows I don't think I could. But we begin with the genealogies. Look at verses, let's start with 6 and just read it to yourself.
Verse what? Verse 6.
Chapter 5, okay, beginning at about verse 6. We have some genealogies there, right? Now look at chapter 11. And they really don't have anything in common because chapter 5 really is some L followers, and how they got in there I do not know. But their names say that they are L followers. Okay, remember we looked at the difference between Daniel and Ezekiel. Okay, we've got some L followers in 5. Now look at chapter 11. Oh, Lord, beginning at 10. And you have loads of names. Now, the one thing they have in common is that while the number of years they lived is different, in the first group, Adam lived 930 years, Seth lived 912 years, Lamech lived 777 years. What's happening?
Diminishes.
They're diminishing. Okay? When you look at the others, Shem lived 600 years, Eber lived 464 years, Terah lived 205. You see what's happening?
Yeah.
As sin increased, the lifespan decreased. And it's just interesting. Numbers in the Old Testament mean nothing. Numbers mean absolutely nothing. You know how the old people in the old days counted? 1 too many. You know, that numbers, the bigger the number, the more impossible it was. That was all. 2 numbers have significance. 7, the number of completion. 7 and 40. Every time you run into the number 40, please think long enough. Doesn't mean anything else, it just means long enough. 7 days and 7 nights, it rained until it stopped. Completion. Okay? 7 is just the number of completion. Number of days in a week, 7. A week is complete. 7 is complete. 40, wherever you run into it, long enough. Doesn't mean anything else. It just means it went on long enough. 900, they didn't count that high. They couldn't. They didn't have the numbers for it. Hebrew doesn't have that kind of numbering system, or didn't have until modern Hebrew. The numbers and the letters are the same. Letters are numbers. So they didn't, they lived a long time.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how long. 930 years. Okay. But, no. What's the purpose of the genealogy? To make a connection between Adam and Abraham. That's all. Adam and Abraham. It's like, if any of you have ever crocheted chain stitch, you know, it's just one right after the other in order to fill in the gap. we have 4,000 years to fill in, and we've got to fill it in somehow. So that's what that is. But the main thing is that sin has consequences. Lifespans got increasingly shorter. Then we have these wonderful people, the giants in the earth. Okay? We have giants. And I'm going to just try and finish them off. You have no idea how many people have told me that they were ancient astronauts. Ancient astronauts. Remember the Philistines? Remember the Philistines? On the coast? Can you think about the difference between good diet and bad diet? How tall do you think people were in the ancient world? No concept. By the time of the founding of the United States, the average height of men was between 4'8" and 5'2". If you have ever been down inside Old Ironside and seen the size of the beds, the cots, men were very short. The ancient people were not very tall. But the people up in the Mediterranean area who were fed better because they were on the sea, they were taller. They had better diets. And when the sea people came in them, whoa, man, they were 5, 8, 9, 10. They were tall. They were giants. Can you hear the cultural difference? Okay. Now, the sons of God, the sons of heaven, and the women of earth. Marriage was we're going to look at marriage later, but marriage was an interesting thing in the ancient world. If you didn't marry within your own tribe and clan, you married a stranger. Strangers were not a good thing. Cain was not a good thing to do. He was a stranger. He was a Ger, G-E-R. He was a stranger. Strangers were vulnerable. Women could be stolen from tribes and made wives. Women could be, not bought exactly, bought is a bad term, but women could be taken as captives. They could be gotten in all kinds of ways. But if you got them from somewhere other than your own tribe and clan, you were in trouble. Because they were strange women. They were strange women. And strange women throughout the Bible are a danger. Because they don't have your customs and your God. They're worrisome. So there is always a prohibition against marrying strange women.
Isn't that the thing that men are warned about most in the Hebrew Bible is foreign, do not take foreign wives? It's like that is said more than any other
constant
threat or prohibition.
Constant. Because if you took a strange woman, she usually belonged to another set of gods. She didn't belong to your gods. She belonged to another set of gods. And you had the danger of being exposed to gods who were not your gods. They were her gods. And so you have the sons of God and the woman of earth. And that's not a good thing. Because when you do, evil can come into your house along with her. She brings all her baggage with her. Her religious baggage, her cultural baggage, everything comes with her. Okay? But if you marry in your own tribe, you move in with her. You move in with her.
Cleopatra was a good example.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at, again, the alienation, the God-fearing, and those who are not the sons of God, and the women of the earth. And the final, do we have, no, we're running out of time. We'll get the Tower of Babel next week. Okay? But that's where we are. Fun. I tell you that this was fun to put together. This was, I read more stuff. And I still haven't finished with Joseph. I'm still working on him. And, you know, Abraham, there's so much in Abraham. But Joseph is just as rich. So, you know, I'm trying to get him done in 6 weeks. But next week we'll look at the tower quickly, and then we'll begin to look at Noah and Gilgamesh and some of the other things. And you all have children, don't you?